The Tory rebellion is crushed by the establishment, and scientific experts come out against the government's lockdown policies. Hello everyone and welcome to today's show. We are going to have a dramatic week in Parliament. We have a lot to talk about on this channel because the mainstream media are complacent, lazy and biased. Doesn't matter because we are the media. So this week, Boris Johnson is going to come back to propose his new emergency lockdown measures, or essentially extend what he proposed in March. A number of Conservative MPs, freedom-loving Tory MPs, backed by a number of Lib Dems and Labour, proposed an amendment to ensure that the executive and government don't just randomly use these powers. They need to get the vote, they need a debate, and they need scrutiny, so that people actually know what is going on. This is not tyranny. We still live in a democracy technically, but things aren't going too well. So in this video, we're going to talk about why the Tory rebellion might be defeated potentially. And also, in this video, we're also going to talk about the scientific experts that are coming out to criticize the government's lockdown policies. Now, I understand that a number of people are pro-lockdown, anti-lockdown. They're taking the virus seriously. Some people aren't taking it seriously. It doesn't matter because this is just going to be objective. We're just going to talk about the facts of what's happening. Now, let's start with this chaotic situation in Parliament. Yeah, so an amendment proposed by Sir Graham Brady, backed up by Steve Baker and a lot of Conservative MPs, also a number of Labour MPs, and the opposition essentially, is to ensure that they get a debate and a vote before anything happens. But the Speaker of the House of Commons, Lindsay Hoyle, has said that he would basically block this amendment instead of actually allowing it to be debated and voted on. But this isn't good because, well, firstly, he's afraid that he would come across as another John Bercow by allowing any amendment that comes through. But at the same time, by not allowing it, he would then come across as someone who's intervening in this whole situation. It's not really a good look for Parliament. Yeah, so despite the fact that 100, actually at this point it's just over 100 MPs who are ready to back this amendment against the executive and the establishment, this is not really looking good because so more than 50 MPs have already signed this amendment that was proposed by Sir Graham Brady, the Tory MP, and as I said, they're demanding a vote before any future curbs on British liberty that are brought in. A number of Labour and Liberal Democrats are also said to back this amendment, but Lindsay Hoyle has said no. Yeah, so this whole thing could get actually tricky, ironically, for Boris Johnson and his government because, they might just win this battle. It's not even like they're winning it. It's obviously the establishment in Parliament doing it. But if they don't have this amendment, because this amendment was their only way to avoid a full-on defeat on the actual vote. So the amendment was to make some changes, and then you could actually get the actual emergency powers bill to go through. But right now it's quite tricky. This morning we had Steve Baker entering Parliament wearing a t-shirt saying that 2020 is the new 1984. This is what a rebel looks like. Yeah, and the reason it's going to get tricky is because if this amendment actually is blocked, or any other amendment that could be tabled by a number of others as well, including David Davis and the Labour Party, all these MPs who are ready to vote for the amendment could vote against Boris Johnson's government on the actual vote, which means the government could lose the vote on the emergency lockdown powers, which is quite weird because that means the government will no longer have powers to enforce these lockdown rules. So all they can do is just beg people to comply and obey. And yeah, good luck with that. Yes, at a time when the government are introducing more ridiculous guidelines, the Big Brother Watch tweeted this, talking about how from today, restaurants, cafes and bars are legally obliged to stop us from singing or dancing. Yet again, this was imposed without scrutiny from Parliament. Where will it end? Government cannot and should not legislate every part of our lives. Yes, so singing and dancing is illegal. Next guideline that will be introduced is a ban on smiling. No more smiling, guys. So next will be eye contact and waving and breathing, waking up. It is ridiculous because also, as of today, we have another ridiculous thing that's actually happening. The government are sending the police around to knock on people's doors, like their households that should be self-isolating, to ensure that they haven't, gone to Tesco or Sainsbury's or for a quick walk in an empty park. So yes, the government is coming for you. The big brother, the nanny state, is actually full in power. At the same time, we do have a number of Conservative MPs, especially in the north, who are calling for authorities to reconsider their plans to ban home visits, because this is also getting out of hand. We have MPs like Matt Vickers, Simon Clarke and Jacob Young who are standing up against these measures that are not evidence-based, that are not actually logical in any shape or form. Yeah, so you can't leave your house, but also there's also a ban on households visiting in certain regions. So this is also getting quite out of control because a number of people who are doing this are young and healthy, and a lot of them also are immune. There is a whole debate. This is a whole part of the video. I'm going to talk about the scientific experts that have now come out to speak out against the government's measures, because until now they haven't said anything, and they've been completely ignored. A lot of them have also been quite patient to wait and see where the evidence is. It took a few months, but now that they have more evidence, scientists are now saying that the government's policies are absolutely ridiculous. First is Dr. John Lee, who said that this whole thing, the whole disease, is not as bad as people say it is.
Although those people are the elderly mainly and people who have already got serious conditions. And they're failing to distinguish that between this is a serious virus. In other words, this is a virus that causes that condition in a high percentage of the population. That is clearly not true. Actually, this virus mainly hardly affects people at all. So this overreaction that we're having is almost a crisis of awareness rather than a viral crisis, and the problems that we're having are completely self-imposed.
Yes, and he also said that these measures are absolutely ludicrous because they don't work.
The prospect that the rule of six, the prospect that we may have a closure of bars, pubs and restaurants and bans on people meeting between different households indoors. What do you make of the prospect of those? Will they save any lives?
I don't think so, no. I think they're totally illiberal and totalitarian, and they're completely misplaced, because the people who are least susceptible to this virus are the young, working age population, people under 60. Frankly, unless you're already seriously ill with something, you have really hardly any greater chance of having a problem with this virus than you do any normal winter. Obviously, the people who are at risk from this virus are older people and people with multiple diseases. And the thing is, yes, of course, every life is important. But the point is, every single winter, old people contract diseases, particularly seasonal diseases, respiratory diseases, and they die. And it's almost like we can't have a grown-up conversation about death in this country.
Next, we have Professor Mark Woolhouse, who said that those who are in favor of lockdown don't understand that in a history of science and medicine, lockdowns never worked. Lockdown is simply delaying the situation that you need to deal with from day one.
Did the government model anything other than a lockdown right at the start?
Basically, no. And that is a worry, because when we started modelling this way back in March, before the first lockdown, it was very apparent from the work that my group did and many other groups did that all a lockdown ever did is defer the problem. It solves an immediate crisis because it reduces transmission quickly, but it doesn't actually solve the problem in the long term. It doesn't make the virus go away. So in the middle of March, we were modelling scenarios where it was entirely possible that we'd need to lock down again in September. And that's exactly the position we find ourselves in. Lockdown just defers the problem. It doesn't solve it.
Yeah, this isn't anything new. The doctors and scientists have always been saying, if you do some research in terms of the history of these things, lockdowns never actually worked. It just delays the situation until you come up with a solution. That was the whole point of the original lockdown, but the government didn't really do anything about it. And this is a problem where shielding and making people immune is the best idea.
Is by allowing the infection to spread among those who are not vulnerable, such that immunity is built up in the population, which then brings the risk of infection down, let's say by Christmas, for example. And in the process, during that period when immunity is going to be built up, and we don't know how much immunity we need to build up, we've previously suggested that there is already substantial amounts of immunity in the population. But, we don't know that. But if we take the view that, okay, we don't know how much immunity there is, but we do know that we can build up enough immunity to keep the risks low. So why not go ahead and do that, and meanwhile aggressively shield the vulnerable population?
Well, but if you say anything like this, then you know that people say you don't really care about people's lives, you don't care about public health, and you're just complacent. Not really. These people are experts. They are also scientists. And the government scientists aren't being challenged at this point. There's only one way of thinking, and that has to change. But going back to the whole situation in Parliament, politicians who are making these decisions, and also people in government as well, who have no background really in terms of the science or medicine in that sense. Obviously, they are just getting advice from a number of people. They don't know what's going on. They're Liberal Democrats, for example, and their new leader, Davey, who's said that he's backing the Brady amendment against the government. But he's not really open. He can't be brave enough to say it. If he was brave enough, he would actually put his name on the letter, just like Harriet Harman from the Labour Party and others.
Are the Liberal Democrats going to vote for the amendment?
Hugely sympathetic with it. I do think the government have failed to come to Parliament when they should have done. And so we're very...
I'm sorry to jump in, but hugely sympathetic. What does that mean? Does that mean you're going to vote for it or not?
My only concern with it, Andrew, is it doesn't go far enough. So I like it very much.
Will you vote for it?
Well, almost certainly. Right. I want to see it. I want to see all the other members. But
yeah, well, that's the reality of what's happening in this country. But as I said, this week in Parliament is going to be dramatic. On this channel, we'll keep you guys posted on a daily basis because we are the media, as I've said so many times. But don't forget to actually subscribe to the channel and support the channel by becoming a member. You will get a lot of perks and benefits, including the next video where I'll be answering the questions that we've received from the members of the channel. That's one of the perks that you guys receive. And also, don't forget, in the description, you could also find the details of the video Q&A, where you could actually send your questions via selfie video, about 20 seconds if you could maximum. You could either WhatsApp it to us or send an email. As I said, the details are in the description box. I'm Tousi, and I'll see you guys in the next video.